Cade Milafalcha. Welcome to Irish Granny Helen. This is Current Events with Nate of the Third Wish. Hey.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome. Welcome back. It's been a while. So, Nate, we are going to talk about current events. And that's a challenge, huh?
Lots going on.
I want to talk about something that is begging to be talked about, not our typical fare. And like I told you off screen, he doesn't know what I'm going to talk about here. I know nothing about this, and therefore I have an opinion. So let's see, which makes sense, right? So I think we need to talk about the great social event of the weekend. What did you do this last weekend, Nate? Were you at Madison Square Garden by any chance?
Oh, I see where you're going with this. I was not invited due to me glued to the World Cup games.
Glued. Yeah, popular culture is failing us abysmally, right? Okay, here's the thing we're talking about, if you haven't figured it out, is Taylor Swift's wedding. And I fully anticipate, I know I shouldn't talk about this. I fully anticipate we're going to get a lot of negative reaction about this. But you know, your opinions are your opinions, whether people agree or not, right? So this is a young woman who ostensibly, she's very wealthy and she empowers young women to be the best. She empowers young women to aspire to wealth. And if not necessarily in her words, certainly in her deeds. And I think that's reflected in her wedding. So who was the officiant at the wedding?
Oh, I don't know, because it was all kept secret. You had to put your phone in a bag and...
Adam Sandler, who is a vocal Zionist. So he advocates genocide. Who was one of the guests? Some family friend of the groom, who is the CEO of many of the detention facilities right now. There's signaling going on here about values. She had some inordinately bizarre number of wedding dresses. I think I saw 3. Like you said, it's hard to get information, but I think I saw a minimum of 3, very fancy, and you can be sure expensive. They had their wedding at Madison Square Garden, for God's sake. Come on. So we're talking about somebody who says one thing, but lives this life of overconsumption and opulence and self-indulgence. And you don't need a wedding like that. Nobody needs a wedding like that. I had a beautiful wedding and I bought my dress on the half price rack. You've seen the pictures. It's a beautiful dress, you know?
I think it can be beautiful. But the other thing, though, is that there's the artist and then there's her private life. Is her private life our business or none of our business?
Well, it's none of our business, and I don't believe that her wedding should have been a public display of overconsumption.
And it was not a public display because it was private and all the phones were in lockers.
Yeah, but how many guests do you have to amuse something like Madison Square Garden? I mean, come on.
Oh,
that's not a private wedding.
Compare that to the Jeff Bezos wedding in Venice.
Well, guess what? The same guest list. The same guest list for both those events. The same guest list for the Met Gala. We're talking about people who do not care about the rest of us. It may fill their bank account to tell us they care, but they don't care, because if they cared, I don't know how much money they spent on that wedding. You could have had a beautiful, intimate family wedding for a fraction of that money and given that money to
That's true.
organizations. And yes, she donates money. And yes, she treats her employees well. I don't want to get into that argument. But she is perpetuating aspirational wealth. And I think, this is the ultimate in capitalistic self-serving greed. I don't agree with it. It's just my personal values. I don't agree with it. If I had the money she had, I wouldn't do that. That doesn't make me a better person, but it says something about values.
I also read that where you cannot just go and say that it's all about the materialistic stuff. She's someone very spiritual. She makes her decisions based on numerology. She's probably interested by astrology. So there's a lot of spiritual going on as well.
Oh, you can see that. I mean, 4, 5 wedding dresses. I mean, you can definitely see very spiritual, not materialistic at all. Judge not lest you be judged. I will go to hell because all I do is judge. Having said that, I'm judging. I think this is a horrible message to send to young girls. It's an aspirational wealth beyond the capacity of ordinary people. And it's perpetuating this delusion of marriage and performative wedding nonsense. And there's so many layers to this. But now that I've spoken it out loud and I'm in trouble with the world, that's all right. What else is new, right? What do you think about that?
Well, I see your point, of course, but it's true that she does not donate, and quite a bit. She also was a support for the Biden campaign, so on the right side of the track here.
No, well, she was on the right side of the track late in the game, and now she's on the wrong side of the track.
Well, better late than never, and it was a private event, and she can do what she wants with her wedding. She has the right of doing whatever she wants.
Oh, no argument there. And I think it needs to be mentioned. All the charity, her money makes money for her. That's what being a billionaire is about. You continue in your situation of wealth because your money is making money. And she can donate till her heart's content, and she'll always have far more money than she could ever spend. And I just think
I know what you mean. I give an example. A friend of mine has a charity. She works for support to Ukraine, and it's a very down-to-earth charity. And she told me one day one of the donor said, how do you know how much to donate when you're wealthy? And the donor replied, you're giving the right amount when it starts hurting.
Well, there's that parable in the Bible. I'm always quoting the Bible, and I'm not religious, so that says something, right? There's a parable in the Bible, the widow's mite, where there was this discussion going on about how much you should give to charity. And Jesus pointed out that old lady over there who's a widow just gave away her last little coin. A mite was a tiny fraction of a coin, right? She gave her last money that she had for somebody who was worse off than her. The point was, this is allegorical. The point is, you give, even if you give till there's nothing left, in order to help other people. Now, in that woman's situation, she was already in such a bad situation that she wasn't making anything worse for herself, really. Her last coin, she was going to need help no matter whether she gave that last coin away or not.
Yes.
I think we have an obligation, if we can, to, what's the word I want, to to support our own needs as much as we can, and try very hard not to be a burden to other people. But when somebody is a burden, we shouldn't even look at it that way. When somebody needs help, we should be out there helping them as much as we can without making ourselves in exactly their shoes.
I know.
And that's not what we're seeing here. We're seeing rich people renting a city in
Italy.
in Vienna, Venice, renting every single gondola in town so that there's nothing available for anybody for a 5-day weekend, just in case your rich friends need it. So the people who live there don't have access to transportation. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. You want to read on that or just
No, I
go
just
to the
wanted
topic?
to rant.
Okay, okay.
I really wanted to rant. So let's get down to these issues. What do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about the heat dome, or you want to talk about Ukraine?
Well, let's talk about Ukraine.
Okay. So I have a little bit of information. I'll go through it as quickly as I can. So I read a few articles about the casualties in this conflict, right? Some of this is from the Study for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C. And there was another one I forgot to write down, but I'm not making it up. Okay. So more than 2 million Russians have been killed or wounded. Russians and Ukrainians, about 1.4 million Russians. 450 Russians killed, which is 4 times higher than the U.S. deaths from World War II in any kind of conflict. Ukraine, at the most, they don't have accurate numbers we'll talk about. Maybe as many as 150 deaths, 150,000 deaths, and 500,000 injured, 500,000 injured. So the reason we can't be exact is because Putin undercounts. He lies about it, and Ukraine does not disclose any numbers at all. So where these numbers come from are United States and British experts who know about these things are estimating. So for all of these deaths, Russia has made progress of less than 165 feet a day.
Wow.
And since the spring of this year, its territorial control has begun to shrink. They're really struggling, partly because Starlink got cut off from them for a while. Isn't that interesting? I wonder why that happened. There are 3-to-1 Russian soldiers to Ukrainian. They have 3 times as many Ukrainians. So actually, the Ukrainians are losing a larger percentage of their army.
They are more,
fewer deaths in total, but a larger proportion of the total amount that they have. But this is the question that really came to my mind. So Russia now has the first draft of young people that it's had since World War II. And they are releasing prisoners and debtors. They have people in prison for debt. And they're releasing them if they join the military, and they send them to Ukraine. And somebody told me, was it you who told me that they have like this ridiculously short lifespan on the front? The Russians do.
I didn't know that.
A few hours. It's just it's dramatic. North Korea sent them more than 10,000. Yeah. So they're losing 30 to 34,000 soldiers a month. Now, by losing, it doesn't necessarily mean killed. It means out of action because even they're injured, right? But more than 27,000 of them are new recruits because they're not being trained, right? So then on top of this, now we've got an added thing that we're not hearing about a lot here. NATO is potentially getting involved. The Baltic Sea is called the NATO Sea. I didn't know that.
Oh.
And the Baltic states are really worried because they think that Putin is getting desperate, and they're preparing for an invasion of Gotland. Now, this is an island between Latvia and Sweden in the Baltic Sea, close to Russia. And this is a large common fear right now that Putin is going to invade this island as the first step towards invading the Baltic states. And Sweden owns that island. So the Swedish government has just instituted compulsory military service and also a whole huge program of civil preparedness, food, water, communication. I mean, they're taking this extremely seriously. So is Switzerland. That's a whole other conversation. So my question here is actually not about Russia and Ukraine or Sweden per se. My question is about compulsory military service. And my question is, what do you think about that? And you would know, huh?
Well, I had to serve.
That's right.
It was not my choice. But
so what are your thoughts on it, Nate? Because you're in a good position to have an opinion.
I feel that if this is just for the purpose of army, the tools, the war has become so technological with drones and everything, then I think that bodies don't really add as much. So I would say
That's interesting. Yeah.
it's maybe not where I would invest. I would invest in technology, drones. I mean, even AI. How can AI replace people? Well, we always talk about that. If AI can replace people for a job, they can certainly prevent people to be killed. So let's just go all in technological. And I know that doesn't replace everything. And then that maybe be a good way to prevent people having to serve and take a year, 2 years of their lives.
Yeah, you're looking at it from a really pragmatic point
Yes.
of view, right? And I immediately go to the denial of free will. And I very set aside patriotism, set aside self-defense, set aside all the practical considerations. If a tank rolls down my street, I'm sure I'll feel differently. But the specter of compulsory military service, to me, is the threat of taking away your free will. Now, why I feel that way is because of something that you hear coming from, you've always heard, coming from the American military. They will very publicly brag, we get young people and we break them down so we can build them up. That's almost a quote that I've heard hundreds of times. The implication being a form of brainwashing.
Well, we format them. We format.
Yeah, it's a form of brainwashing. What if you don't want to participate in that?
Couldn't you be an objector?
Well, you can't in Russia.
No, but in the Western world, you can be an objector.
Sometimes. I think it depends country to country. I don't know what Sweden's policy is.
Yes.
They're trying to remove that from the United States now. They're talking about reinstating a draft, compulsory service, and there will not be any I've read this, there will not be any conscientious objection. You'll serve time in prison and you'll have a huge fine, like $500,000 or something, really ridiculous. Very, very punitive. It's coercive, and coercion removes free will. Now, speaking in very philosophical terms, in the real world, it often doesn't boil down to that. But let's discuss the morality, the philosophy, the spirituality of it. Do you think that compulsory military service is correct in context of free will?
Well, not in context of free will, but I don't think it's pragmatic. I think the levels have reached such a high level of technology that, when I was doing the military service, we were cleaning bathrooms, so that's not serving in a military kind of way.
I think the goal, I'm playing devil's advocate here. I think the idea is to prepare a portion of the population to fall into place if they're needed in an emergency
Yeah, but
situation.
you need to be trained. How are you trained to a drone? How are you trained to an equipment? How you're trained even to use a military gun? You
You
need
didn't have
full
that training?
for a month.
No, that doesn't give me a lot of confidence. Scary.
So, I mean, yeah, for a month.
Well, let's look at it from a psychological point of view. My daughters and I, in the past, we've talked about this, and they're pretty funny because they're the farthest thing from being inclined to participate in that. One of my daughters said, "You wake me up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to tell you where to go. And I don't care who you are. I'm not getting out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning to go exercise. That's not happening." And I think, you might not be allowed to resist. You're forced to do it,
Yes.
browbeaten into it. But I don't know. I know that daughter. It's pretty hard to browbeat into anything. I've tried, believe me, I've tried. It doesn't sit right with me to feel coerced into doing something that I feel morally objective is morally objectable. Is that the right word? Objectionable. There.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah. It doesn't feel right to me in a gut level,
Yeah.
So my question, I guess, would be, maybe we should just read on the morality of, conscription, mandatory conscription. Is it an offense to free will, or is there something that I'm not thinking of that,
Well, the high priestess to start with, you have to really think for your own. This is a spiritual, conscious decision, and it's only with you. Now, what are the material implications? That's another aspect. And money keeps coming up. It's true. Like, look in the US, we'll pay for your education if you join. We'll pay. I mean, there's coercion, but also the carrot.
Yeah.
That can be used. I mean, given the cost of education, that's something to consider. I know people would join because of the educational benefit.
I think it used to be better than it actually was.
Probably.
I don't know what to make of this. I got the 10 of Cups reversed. That this somehow to me is an offense to feeling, to compassion. And I got the 10 of Swords reversed. I think it's interesting that they're both 10s and they're both reversed.
We're turning a cycle.
Yeah.
It's not really. War is. I mean, you look what happened in Iran. That was not a lot of people.
No. 3 of Cups reversed. This is not ever well received, right?
No.
I don't think a lot of people really go along with it. But this card reflects what you said. The 8 of Pentacles reversed. It's not a smart financial position either. They're not thinking long term. I think it's it's a need to assert domination and control more than anything else.
Yes.
I'm surprised we didn't see more cards like that.
Well, I think they indicate like it's not a thing of our times. I think it's a dated
concept
point of view. Yes, it's dated. I
Well, they
think it's
used to
very
just scoop.
dated.
They used to just scoop people off the street and knock them over the head and throw them on a ship. And when they came to consciousness, they were in the middle of the
Of
ocean.
course.
Yeah. Okay. The next subject that I thought would, it reflects for you is the whole debate in Europe right now going on about, especially France, going on about air conditioning and embracing the concept of air conditioning as opposed to, and there's huge debate. The EU is going crazy about this. Some people are advocating, no. We don't want air conditioning, individual air conditioning. We want cooling centers. So if you're too hot, your house is too hot, you go to this place to be cooled down, kind of a communal situation. Public places would be created for people to go to. Find shade. Let's insulate places better. This is actually the argument.
Of course.
In the United States, 90% of homes have air conditioning. That shocked me. I don't even have central heating. I'm living like it's, 1895. This shocked me. I had no idea. So there's this environmentalist part of the debate that's going on, and the tension is between, think of the environment. Let's not put people in the front of the argument and people dying in the heat. Let's look at the long-term implications for the environment, as opposed to the more right-wing point of view, which is what global warming? The necessary regulations that would long-term maybe help to address some of the situations. They're not concerned about that. They wanted a quick fix with a machine that you
Yes.
can turn on, right?
I watched that pretty much for weeks, this debate.
So
on
tell us
TV.
about it. What do you think
Well,
about
there is
this?
a debate, and it made me upset. I know that I have shared before on shows that I'm more affiliated with the Green Party. And it's sad because what has been happening is the right wing has said, well, see, the Green Party doesn't want air conditioning, so what do they suggest to do? This is not true. The Green Party never said we don't want air conditioning. They're saying that the air conditioning is not the long-term solution per se. In other words, if we had more trees, if we had more cooling systems or more natural ways of cooling, like building habitats and building homes with more modern ways to prevent heat or cold, we would be better off. And so there's the whole thinking about how we live as a society in a global warming.
You're talking about people
Yes.
who dominate the opinion that let's just plug everybody into air conditioning, and they're not understanding that the 1% have access to boats and air conditioning and park-like yards.
Also air conditioning contributes to global warming.
Well, of course.
So that question alone just talks about everything. Now, what I think has been totally missed is that Green Party has always said current situations, we have people in nursing homes, in schools, in work conditions. Yes, bring air conditioning, because obviously the trees and the new buildings are not going to happen now. So they're not against air conditioning. They're actually for air conditioning.
Right.
But they're saying this is not the long-term way of thinking about this.
Right. And there tends to be on the right wing side of, I know in Europe anyway, it seems to me that the argument tends to be short-term fix with no regard for long-term.
Let's just put where you find hundreds of millions of euros or dollars or whatever to put those machines. This is not realistic. And
No,
so,
and it's not far thinking.
no. And so you really have to think of, look at in the world, example like Singapore, where they have put trees everywhere. There's thinking, I mean, there's ways to do this. But of course, if it's like 100 or 120 Fahrenheit and it's people need help, and so put air conditioning there, absolutely, right here, right now, to prevent death.
Death, right. Well, I know that Jeff Bezos is not in Europe, or at least not
Yeah,
most of the time. Um, However, I know that he has a gigantic palatial estate on a lake. And it's beautiful. It's like a park, and there's tons of trees, tons of shade on a lake. What does he know about suffering in the heat? And I think that the people in positions to change things, who have a more right wing point of view, are also the ones who have a lot of money and do not really care that they're comfortable, they're okay. Go sit in the shade. If you live in an urban area that's all cement, there's no grass left. The trees are dying. There's no shade. There's no place to go where you're not getting the
of course.
radiating heat, from
The,
the cement.
we discussed that on my show 2 weeks ago about a proposal from the Green Party to have a climate leave of absence when it's too hot,
That's right.
you know, and they were pushed back on television, and they said it's very easy for you to just brush it off in your climatized TV studio where it's very comfortable, where we're sitting right now, but people are working in constructions, people are working and they die and they pass out. So yes, this idea of a climate, leave of absence, 5 days a year, tornadoes, fires, earthquake, it starts to
Flooding.
make
Yeah.
sense. I know people starts like, oh, it is actually starting to make sense.
I think it makes a lot of sense. Instead of that, they're passing laws in Texas that say you cannot take a break for water.
Well, yeah.
You're on
So,
top
I
of a
mean,
roof in Texas in the heat of the summer, but you can't stop for
I
water.
would say until they fix everything, they take measures to adjust working conditions, you have to give people a climate leave of absence.
Let's do cards on that. Let's
Yes.
ask, what solution is there? I don't have the queen of air conditioning, do you?
Well, that would be the Queen of Sword.
Or the queen of cups?
Well, sword
Passion,
for the air.
water.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Oh, the queen of swords for the air. I didn't get that right away.
Yeah, yeah.
Slow.
But I mean,
I thought you meant laws, changing
people
laws.
brush it off, this climate leave of absence, and now, oh yeah, what actually starts to make sense.
We have to put compassion for our fellow human being in the front of our concern, not money, not power,
Okay, so the question is,
what's the solution to this,
well, first of all, the Page of Wands. The solutions really have to be pushed by the younger generations. They're the ones who are going to deal with the massive problem.
Oh my God.
Eight of Cups, people are going to leave areas and you are going to have climate refugees. Climate refugees. Even in the US, you're going to have climate refugees.
Remind me to tell you something about water when you're done reading your cards.
Yes. And the Ten of Cups, it feels like people are going to have to come together to find solutions. There's ways, but it's going to have to be work. And yes, I feel like it's going to be forced on us.
I have a friend who does work with water company, not just utilities, but like big water situations. in the Southwest, and there is a gigantic water crisis in the United States that
Yes.
nobody's talking about. I mean, pockets of people who know in the industry and whatever, local officials know that, hey, that dam is so low that the dam is going to fail. There's going to be no water, period.
Yes.
The gigantic Ogallala aquifer, which is, I think it serves 8 different states. It's the underground water. It's about wiped out. This is not funny anymore, you guys. This is
No.
serious. So I got very interesting cards. Always cheerful. The Two of Pentacles. This is a decision that has to do with money and power. How will the choices be made? Well, they need to be made with the future. This is the Two of Wands. So we're at the beginning of this problem. I'm getting a lot of like low cards here. The Two of Pentacles, the Two of Wands. This is the start of the conversation. This is a little too late, I think, but we have to look at the future and realize that it's, you know, what we do now is going to determine where we go. Where we go, the Fool. What path are we going to take, right? I get the Seven of Cups. Choices to be made, and people are living in la la land. People are living in a fantasy world. They're deluded. They're not seeing clearly. The Tower.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we know that, right?
I mean, no, and also just a note, when I say creating a climate leave of absence, it already exists. What do you think happens with people who have fires around them and they can't go to work? They can't go to work anyways. What do you think when there's like a hurricane, or when people still, so it's happening whether companies and government want to accept it or not. If people can't go to work, if kids can't go to school, there is no solution.
The choice will be taken out of your hands.
So call it what you want to call it.
Yeah, I agree.
They will say stay home, work from home. You can't even work from home if you have fires around you. So I mean, like, it's really getting to that point.
It's past that point. We're in a crisis
Yes.
situation, and I think that well, we're going to find out because people are in denial, you know. I mean, it's so frustrating. Okay. I had another subject here, but I think I'm going to make a longer video about it. I think it's more important, but I'm going to mention one thing.
Yes.
Not to
Because
toot
I'm
my-
also I'm on a little time.
I do have one other little topic, but not after this comment. Not to toot my own horn, but you may have noticed this weekend that the Pope excommunicated a whole bunch of people who had a
Oh yes, I did see
ceremony
that.
for, they made
Yes.
for, yeah, it's the Pope Saint Pius, I think the 10th, I forget the number, society. It's a schismatic, Catholic, right-wing, conservative, those are two different things, organization that it is, I predicted this, they are fully,
That's true.
it's a
I
schism.
saw that. That's true. Absolutely
Yeah,
true.
and I just thought I'd point that out, but I'm going to talk more about it in a separate video. Quickly, can we do one more short thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Real
So
quick.
this is an issue a lot of people ask me about. How do I deal with family? People cutting off family, no contact with their
Yes,
family.
no contact.
Right. And more people are doing it, and they're calling themselves the family outcast. So I thought about this. I said, so what if there's severe dysfunction in your family? What if you reach a block where you cannot progress beyond that because there's resistance? They refuse to participate in therapy or family counseling, that there are ongoing offenses that contribute to the dysfunction. What if there's addiction? You know, that's another whole thing. So what if interaction that continues from the past would be, I'm being careful here, legally actionable? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So what if denial is a huge part of what they consider the factual past, like their vision of your narrative, your family narrative is completely different from how you see it? So quickly, my question is, what do you do? Is it okay to set boundaries and just not, cut off communication? It sounds so final.
But it doesn't need to be final. I see it more as in extreme cases, you have to protect yourself. Maybe you have to protect some of your loved ones. And I feel like my point of view is that don't make it final. But because, as you just never know in life what life might bring. So my answer is don't make it final, but protect yourself.
I think we have to have enough humility and personal insight to say that in any relationship, we bear some responsibility for the dynamics, right? And to be able to admit that, to meet people halfway and say, I'm available if we want to address this formally, in some sort of a therapy or counseling or something, because we're not able to do it on our own. And I accept that I'm half of the relationship. I don't think it's good to go into it saying, well, you're all to blame, and
No.
I'm, as white as the driven snow, completely without sin, No, but I think you're right. You have to establish boundaries. Let's see what the cards
Four of Pentacles, a sense of holding your ground, holding tight.
Power. Yeah.
And yes, I think we can ignore that. There's a form of being heartbroken on both sides, even if you're the one putting away or the recipient.
Oh, okay. So I've got some interesting cards here. The Seven of Wands, this ongoing defending yourself, battling, friction. And the Six of Coins says what I said. We each bear, responsibility. It's a quid pro quo, right? What you do, you get back, and accusations could be made on both sides, whatever. But you have to approach it from a place of compassion. I bear responsibility too, right? And then ultimately establish boundaries, the Queen of Swords. You just have to speak your truth and establish boundaries.
It is the key card here. Absolutely.
And I wanted to talk about this briefly because I think there's a lot of guilt.
It's a lot of that.
And yes. Have a lot of guilt put on them by people not involved in the relationships. How could you never speak to your family again?
I know.
Have you met my family?
I know.
Question. Yeah. It's tough. It's a tough position to be in. Yeah.
Well, Helen, thank you for having me. I will see you next time. I'm on the go right now. I have to go.
Thank you for being had.
Thank you. And see you next week.
Thank you, everybody. Slong of oil.
Bye.